That would be awesome. I think I'm good. Yep, good. Yep, I know you. I wore black jeans last week. That looked bad on capture.
It looked like you were floating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I want to say hello to everyone at all of our locations, fellows at RCMU, East, West, those of you online. We're going to land this whole series. So for those of you who have been lamenting the parenting series, like, I'm not a parent, I'm done with it, we're going to land it, but this applies to all of us. This parenting talk helps each of us not only be better parents, but better kids, specifically between us and God. If you missed the whole premise to this, let me show you the seasons. These are the seasons we've been talking about week after week after week and going through different ones. We talked about the discipline years, the training years, the coaching years, and the friendship years are this week. The friendship years. The 18 plus, the in theory, they graduate and they move out. They go off to college, they go into the military, they get their first apartment, they kind of spread their wings. It's the season of life that, frankly, they've been anticipating. In fact, they've been planning and excited. They've gone through all the incredible seasons of elementary school, middle school, and high school, and now it's independence. It's really a special time. But if you could think about just to your life, only your life, and you remember when you left home, whatever age that was, when you left home, that first week, the first month, first year, you experienced some things for the very first time that may have been the rude awakening where, hey, rent is now on you. Dinner plans, lunch plans, breakfast, whatever, it's on you. And you might have roommates, but then you learn how roommates, that's not always the easiest thing. Then it came laundry time, and you realize it was this moment, you're like, wait a minute. Laundry doesn't magically clean itself, fold itself, and put itself on my bed? What? See, when you move out, you may have thought a little about that, but the reality sets in. And what we know is it actually becomes a confusing time, just for a brief time. A confusing time between the parent and the child, but the child is now an adult. It's tough. How does the relationship play out? Because no longer can you be the disciplinarian. If you're trying to be the disciplinarian, it's not going to work for you. You can't be the trainer anymore. Or even, really, you can't be the coach. You lose the privileges and the moments, for the most part, that you had when your kid was in your home. How does everything change? What does it then look like? I'll tell you, and you may already know this, but it'll help. The parent becomes the advisor and friend. You, the parent, who you have been raising from the very beginning, this child, you now are this advisor, a friend. This is when friendship is appropriate. It's good because you don't have to discipline and get into that. Now, here's what I've learned, because I have incredible parents. They're very special to me. I have a great relationship with them even right now. And I remember the transition. I graduated high school and then went off to college. And then after college, I got a 4-year degree in 5 years. It was that good. And then I remember when I transitioned to my first like real legitimate full-time job, and they were a part of that. And the way they were a part of it was advising and friendship. I've often gone to my mom and my dad for advice on a lot of different things. Sometimes just to talk, lament, a safe place to maybe even whine and just complain. And many times a safe place to really speak what's really on your heart. Advice is a powerful thing in those moments. Now I got to tell you, I've not always listened to my parents when I sought their advice. In fact, there's been many moments where I don't go to them. And in particular, I remember I was golfing with my dad, and Katie was with us. Now, Katie and I, we were just dating in that moment, and it was kind of my parents' first introduction to Katie. And so Katie was riding along in the cart with me, and my dad was in his cart, and we were just playing golf, having a great time. And I remember my dad and I found ourselves alone, and we just began to talk, and my dad looked at me. I'll never forget this, and he says, in the kindest, most loving way, Augie, he calls me Augie, you're an idiot if you don't marry this girl. And I know most of you like, you would have been an idiot, David, if you hadn't. My mom later gave me the same advice. Like, you being it, this girl is absolutely amazing. But see, I didn't jump on their advice in that moment. I was afraid of commitment. I thought I could handle life by myself, and I wasn't trying to be super quick, but I was being super slow. And I got to tell you, I almost lost Katie because I didn't take my parents' advice. Like, she's amazing. You got to know how amazing she is. But I was just afraid of commitment, and I was not heeding their advice. There's been multiple times that they've offered me advice. I've accepted it, and some I've denied. But it doesn't neglect the power of advice. The Bible gives us this wisdom. Let me show you how this comes out. Without wise leadership. So just think about right now. If you want to make this personal, what kind of wise leadership do you currently have in your life? Who gets to speak into your life? A nation falls without wise leadership. There is safety in having many advisors. Having many advisors. Now, I don't know if you've ever thought about this. If you've thought about in your brain, okay, who are the people that speak into my life? Well, when we're talking parenting, we're talking about a parent, an adult, having the opportunity to pass advice to their child who is now an adult. But that's difficult. It's difficult because independence is now so real and powerful. And if you ever thought about when you first get independence, it can do things to you. My observation about my personal life, our independence can turn into self-reliance. This was my problem with Katie. I was so self-reliant, I thought I can handle life on my own, be on my own. However, I craved a relationship with her. And I had multiple people saying, you should marry her. She's amazing. You guys are a good fit. And I just kind of kept deflecting. And many times our independence can turn into self-reliance. And self-reliance is a dangerous place to live. If you're a kid, maybe an adult kid, and you're in this place of thinking, oh, I can do life on my own. I can manage this all on my own. In fact, some of the worst advice anyone could ever give you is just do everything on your own. You can rely on yourself. That's not true. You need other people. In fact, if you walk out this whole self-reliance piece, here's the temptation that comes up. We're all tempted to misuse our independence. I think all of us are. We're all tempted in the moments of being free to misuse it. Every one of us has our own story. When you were released, when you felt that no one could see or know or be a part of, or they weren't speaking on, they weren't restricting you, they weren't limiting you, and that newfound independence you misused. almost every single person, as soon as they leave home, makes some choices that they shouldn't make. Now, what's interesting in today's society is that in this misuse of different things, we create some expectations about life. And in fact, some of us are like, you're like, wait, 18? I don't have to move out of my house. I'm not moving out of my house. I find it fascinating. We go to the both extremes as parents. Either we kick our kids out at 18 and you're like, you can have nothing. You're not going to be a part of anything of ours. No, you're done none. Or we continue to hover and still try to parent them like they're 6 years old. And there's this extreme, but what happens in the life of the kid who's now an adult, they try to have this. And I don't know if you ever thought about this. We try to have both independence and dependence at the same time. This idea of where we want to be free, complete freedom, where you don't want your parents or your mom or your dad or whoever raised you telling you what to do. Meanwhile, you're relying on them for your sustenance, your bills, your food, your clothes, whatever. It's when you're trying to hold both at the same time, independence and dependence. It's called mooching. It's called where you're living off of someone else. Let me show you nature's version of this, called the remora fish. Now, if you've ever watched like National Geographic, whatever, you probably have seen these fish. You've seen them with sharks and other things. I wanted you to see it with the turtle. See, this fish, the remora fish, can swim on its own, can find food on its own, can survive on its own. But it chooses not to. It actually attaches to any animal that's willing to just go. Any kind of animal with any kind of work ethic, this remora fish attaches to it and lives off of it. What happens is in this case, this turtle will eat food, but some of the food will fall out of its mouth, and these fish will eat that food. They eat the scraps. They do the same with sharks, anything. They're moochers. They live their life, maybe enjoying a little bit of it, off of others. As a parent, when you enter the friendship years, you have to be careful about allowing your child to continue to live off of you, because the danger is not in the added expense in your life. The danger is that your child won't be able to become who they're supposed to become. Some of the real life examples is if your child after 18 continues to live in your house and to eat all of the food and to enjoy the free room, and they're like, but I don't want any rules. You can't give me rules, but I'm going to continue to consume. Independence and dependence. It's when someone, graduates and as an adult, like, I want complete independence, but oh no, I found myself in this mess. Oh, mom and dad, you gotta pull me out of this mess every single time. It's independence and dependence, trying to stay at one place. Because of this, parenting doesn't stop when your kids move out. Because there's this battle of independence, moving from dependence to independence. And you need to know that just because your kid gets some sort of GED, high school degree, something, just because they go into the military or get a job or whatever, they go to college, doesn't mean that everything's over and you wash your hands. And in fact, if you still have the privilege to have regular conversations with your child when they do leave the home, if you get blessed by God in such a way that you get to spend time with your child who's now an adult, then you need to know that your job doesn't stop. Now, I know many of us are like, I know. In fact, some of you've been in this season already, and you actually know better than I do on this. But I wanted to speak some wisdom from the Bible that will help you and I actually say, how do we approach the friendship years? Because what I have learned from others is that the friendship years can actually be some of the most tense, confusing times. And if you don't want to be there, if you don't want to have this awkward moment with your kid who wants independence and dependence and how do you manage this, we can learn. We can learn together. We can learn together from the Bible. In fact, specifically, I want to show you something Jesus said. Yeah. Anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it's built on bedrock. But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish. Cue in on the word foolish. Like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. Now, many of us, if you grew up in church at all, you have actually heard that. Or even if you weren't in church, you've heard this idea of, okay, you're going to build a house, and you're going to build it on sand, on solid ground, or you're going to build it on rock. Solid, sandy, messy, good, bad. Jesus is revealing something to us about decision making. It's very simple. Every decision has two sides. Every decision has two sides. When you go to make decisions, there's two sides. So if you are a parent right now in the friendship years, if you're a parent right now and you're like, okay, my kid grown up, they're an adult, like they're legit now, they job and maybe marriage or kids, and you're like, what do I do? And how do we talk to each other? Well, you're an advisor. So in your conversations, in your times of being able to really have rich moments, you need to help them know every decision has two sides. Like a coin. Every coin has two sides. Every coin has two sides. You know this, so perhaps this can be a reminder that when you're actually having a conversation, every coin has two sides. Now, here's what I know about you and I. Human nature, adults, we all deal with this. We tend to favor one side or the other. In fact, I made a list that I think is helpful. Many of us will focus on the blessing. You want the blessing, and you're like, I wish I had, and you want this blessing, but we neglect the fact that every blessing actually has a burden to it, to use that blessing well. Another one, freedom. Every freedom you have brings about a responsibility. Real life, every picnic has bugs. The picnic's great, but the other side of the coin is that there's dirt and sand and bugs, and you got to figure that out. Others, credit card purchase has credit card payments. Babies, oh, so cute. Cuddly, you sit there and hold them, and they just, especially when they're so young, they coo, and then they poo. They poop, and you have to wipe that poop. Every coin has two sides. Gardens bring all fresh. If you don't like fresh vegetables, you've never had. Fresh vegetables are awesome. But every good gardener knows that there's also weeds that you have to combat. We talk about this relationship with God. God gives us life. Following God brings us to this full life, but also following God means we have to die to ourselves. We have to be selfless. Same thing with marriage. Marriage is awesome, but you got to learn how to serve someone selflessly. Every coin has two sides, and you as the advisor and friend are there to offer it. Now here's the thing though. Here's the advice I've been given to straight from my mom. So I'm going to pass on to you a conversation I had with my mom. My mom said one of the difficult parts about this is you can't just offer advice. Because a lot of times the kids don't want to receive it. You've seen this not just with kids, but other people. That when you offer advice, you're like, that's brilliant. You should write that down. And they don't, and they look at you like they're tired of hearing from you. It's because they need to actually be open to it. So my wisdom for those of you who are kids growing up, seek advice so you can see both sides of the coin. Very simple. If you have any advisors in your life, you need to know that what those advisors bring to you is the other side of the coin you're ignoring. And you need advisors. You need people in your life to help you see, okay, maybe you're this overly optimistic person. You're like, hey, if I invest in this way, it's going to be amazing. I'm going to be rich. You need the person who says, oh, but there's also a risk to that. You need the folks, oh, I found the love of my life. We're going to get married. We just met last week, but we're going to get married. You need the advisor who's like, hey, here's the danger in that. See, if you're unwilling to seek advice, well, the Bible tells you the danger. Plans go wrong. It's very simple. Your one-sided perspective of life, your unwillingness to see and wrestle with the other side, means that you are in great danger of everything going wrong. Plans go wrong for lack of advice. Many advisors bring success. Can I just give you some very blatant, direct honesty here? Many people think the world is out to get them, that God is out to get them, that everything just goes wrong for them. And my advice to you is maybe it's because you don't seek advice and you went with your side of the coin. Do you remember the story that I read to you? Not really a story, just what Jesus was exempling about building a house, and someone builds a house on sand and someone builds a house on rock. Do you know the one common theme in that? Jesus says this, and you're like, oh, that's cool, that's right, yeah, we should build it on rock. Well, here's one reality that you may just not catch. Everyone has storms, but not everyone prepares for them. Everyone has storms, but not everyone prepares for them. And if you haven't leaned into this, even more and more, if you are currently an advisor or a receiver of this, you got to know storms always come. But how are you preparing for them? What advice have you been getting? I like Jim Rohn. He's written multiple books, gives us incredible wisdom. Let me show you a quote of his. There are two types of pain in this world, the short-term pain of discipline and the long-term pain of regret. You have likely seen this. It's posted on Instagram, but you've seen this. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. I'll tell you very personal. I almost lost the love of my life. I'm not exaggerating. Some of you might think, oh, no, I almost lost her. She had already in her head even processed what she was going to say to me in her breakup speech. I was unwilling to heed advice and seek advice because I was living in this world of self-reliance and independence. Perhaps this is God's own prompting for you, that you don't miss out on what you should be a part of by seeking advice. Now, parents, if you're going, well, how do I lead my kid? Because you've got like a massive book full of advice you'd like to offer your kid. Here's my advice been passed on to me, is lead with questions. Just lead with questions. And not say, hey, so you got this problem, here's what you should do. No, you lead with questions. You ask them about their thoughts and their perspectives, and you help them begin to understand by answering your questions, they conclude that they need wisdom. Ask questions. Don't declare statements. Now, that's not the only advice. That's not the only piece that I would say for parents who are now helping a kid be an adult. Here's a second one that I think is huge. Assumption without conversation can create resentment. Yeah, there's always two sides to the coin, always two sides to every decision. Teach them that, advise them on that, be a friend and help them know that. But also help them know this assumption without conversation can create resentment. And if you want to know how many families fall apart, assumptions turn into facts in a person's brain. And the Bible gives us wisdom. It's in what's called the love chapter. I'll show it to you. Here's talking about love, how to love someone. Love, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, Now, I've read this multiple times at weddings and things like that. And this is, again, like I said, called Love Chapter. But what if you saw this and what I think is the greatest way it's intended is how to have relationships. And let's even go further. You can't have protection and trust and hopes, and you can't persevere if assumptions are what fuel your family. Assumptions, I think, are some of the most dangerous things in life. Many of us do this. We assume a lot of things. We assume we know what's really going on. We assume we know what that person thinks. We assume we know why they're doing what they're doing or why they're not doing what they're doing. And if you never thought about this, you got to catch yourself on this. That's why the Bible also says to actually take our thoughts captive, to make them prisoner. Because you and I will make assumptions in our head, and that locks into what you think is truth. In fact, in counseling, this is always an issue. And a marriage and family counselor, Ashley Thorne, she says this is important. If you live your relationship based on assumptions, you're never going to feel fully happy or satisfied because assumptions leave no room for change, growth, or negotiation. Now stay here. This can help you and I not just parent better, not just be a good grown-up kid, but this can help you in your workplace. This can help you in your friendships. This can help you at school. It can help you all. This. Assumptions leave no room for change. Meanwhile, Jesus came to this earth to save us and provide opportunity for change, for growth. And if you want to fix any problem, you have to get assumptions out. You have to blow it up. This wisdom is powerful. And some of us right now, our conversations, they just aren't even happening. They aren't playing out at all. Here, Ephesians helps us even more. Instead, we will speak the truth in love. Truth, truth, truth. Conversations, you got to have the conversations, the tough ones, the ones that you're like, I'm not sure how they're going to react. I'm not sure how this is going to go. I don't want to tell them this bad news about me or this health news about me. I don't want to have this. This is tense, but this is good. You got to set up parameters. Instead, we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. Speaking truth in love is like Christ. So you might be making some assumptions right now in your life, especially in your relationships. Let me give you some options. Perhaps you've seen these assumptions. If you're a kid, if you're a grown-up kid, if you're now like in the independent world, this is great. Okay, perhaps you've been making some of these assumptions. In marriage, once we're on our own, we're going to be in love forever. It's going to be so easy. We don't need anyone's help. We don't fight. It's going to be good. I love her. I love him. What's the problem? You're making some assumptions. You need advisors for your marriage. Finances. Once we start making money, all of our problems are over. You think that once you start making money that you're going to know how to budget. You're going to know how to plan for your retirement. You're going to know how to do all these, how to buy your first home. And you need advisors. You need advisors to speak into that. Parenting, once we have kids, we'll just figure it out. Well, many of us, at least what we've learned in this series is, no, we need help. We need advisors to speak this truth into our lives. We need people to pass on wisdom. If you're a kid that's growing up now, make sure you're not making these assumptions. And by the way, when your kids ask you, I need advice, let me show you what the Bible says. A gentle answer deflects anger. Can some of you, just look at the way you're looking at me, you just look like you're mad. A gentle answer. A gentle answer. Don't finally like, I've been waiting for you to ask me that. No, a gentle answer. When they ask you for wisdom on the most important things in life, Give a gentle answer, not a, I told you so, or I've been telling you this, or why haven't you listened to me? No, a gentle answer, but harsh words make tempers flare. Okay, let's flip the entire script and talk about assumptions from the other side. Parents, some of you assume your kids have the wisdom that they're going to know what to do. They're facing a situation, circumstance, and a problem. Do not assume, oh, they know what to do. They're grown up now. You assume that they're resilient, that they're just going to make it. Oh, they're tough. They're tough. They're strong. They don't need us. No, yeah, they do. And definitely don't assume love, that they know that you love them. Never, never, never assume that. Speak it. And I find this so common in almost every family tension that I've ever been a part of in our own family, and as I've talked with others. Much of the tensions and the disagreements and the breakdowns are rooted in assumption. So we need to talk to each other. Just a word of wisdom again from the Bible. Fools, there's that word again. Fools think their own way is right. See, this verse is for both the grown-up adult child and the parent. Fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. So I thought it would be appropriate to land on a couple questions. So let me show you these questions. What advice are you currently seeking? Like right now, what advice are you currently seeking? Who are the advisors in your life, and you are currently asking advice from that? And if you're like, well, nobody, I'm not asking anyone's advice, well, then I would tell you, you're not living in the faith that God wants you to live. Because when you live a faith-fueled life, you need advice. So I ask you, what advice are you currently seeking? If you are a younger adult, if you are independent, yes, but a younger adult, make sure you have advisors in your life. Also, what assumptions are you currently making? You want to get super real about this? What assumptions are you currently making about your spouse, about your children, about your coworkers, about your boss, about your church? What assumptions are you making that are in danger of lying to you as being fact when they are just assumptions? I think the message that God has for us today is full of wisdom, and I hope you'll receive it. Every decision has two sides, and every conversation goes toxic when it's full of assumptions. Press that into your life, and you can be on the verge of having such rich, awesome conversations, powerful times with family, and your heart will stay healthy. Let me pray for you. God, thank you for letting us have these kinds of conversations, this wisdom from your word, that we need advice. We don't want to live as fools. So God, help us soften our hearts. Soften our hearts, God, to be open to wisdom from others, wisdom from you. God, I pray for those of us who are in the season of influencing anyone. No matter what season, young or even an independent child that has now graduated and is living their own independent life, God, help us to reference you, to lean on you, to require from you the strength and wisdom and discernment and the peace to be able to lead and to help others. God, I pray for every single family in the midst of this conversation we've just spent 5 weeks on. I pray that you will bless families, protect families, lead families, that your favor will be on these families. God, thank you for letting us be a part of your family. We love you with all of our heart, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.